Hey guys, welcome to today's lesson. We are looking at some harder mean questions. This is all problem solving. There's lots of ways to do it. This is just one way that I've done it. So for my question, I'm going to decide to have a mean of 10 and a range of 5. Okay, because the question says that we want to have 5 numbers where the mean is twice the range, right? In this case, I'm correct. You can start with anything. You can do some algebra if you wish. Now for me, I'm going to start with a median of 10. Now I want a mean of 10. So I'm going to start with a 10 there, right? And if I want to have a mean of 10, that means I'm going to have a total score of 5 times 10, which is 50. So if I have 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, that would kind of work, right? But of course, I'm not going to have a range of 5. I'm going to have a range of 0. So the way I'm going to do it is this. I'm going to start with 10. I'm going to say 11 and then 9 because that makes up the 20. I'm going to make 12 and 8. That makes up the 20. So I've just sort of subtracted one from one side and added it to the other. That ensures that this still provides me a mean of 10. Now my range is not 5 though. What do I have? I have a range of 4. Therefore, in order for me to have a range of 5, I've got to do one of two things. I need to either make the 12 into a 13 or an 8 into a 7. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take it to a 7 and a 12. That means I'm one less. So I'm going to knock this one up to a 10. This is a 10 and this is 11. And I now have formulated, using some problem solving methods, 5 numbers where the range is 12 minus 7, which equals 5, and the mean, if I add them all together, it still equals 50 divided by 5, which equals 10, and now the mean is twice the range. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Likewise, I could have said from here, I could have changed this to a 13, but then I would have had to have taken a number away. For example, maybe turning this into a 9. Okay, so again, lots of ways you could do these questions, but this is just one way that I've decided. Okay, another really hard question. Now, we don't know how many numbers we are. Like they've said, write down a list of numbers. It can be a whole pile of numbers here. So we have the opportunity to make this up ourselves, I guess. The most important thing for me is a mean of 7. Okay, and a mode of 9. This is where my starting point is going to be. I'm going to put a 7 across here, and then of course I can have a range of numbers left and right of that 7, okay, inclusive of 7 if I want. But I'm going to throw in a couple of 9s here because that now gives me a mode of 9. Now you might want to throw in a couple more 9s, it's up to you. Now in this particular instance, I've got 5 numbers, which means if I have a mean of 8, 5 8s are 40. These numbers have to have to be up to 40, right? And the problem is going to be this. If I subtract the 2 9s away and the 7 away from 40, it means that this number here, or these two numbers, have to be 15. And that's a problem because that's going to be at numbers like 7 and 8, and it's not going to work out. Now, of course, you can modify this by perhaps putting some numbers in between the 7 and the 9. That can happen. But all I'm going to do to make things easier, I'm just going to throw in a 20 onto the right hand side and another number to the left hand side. Now why 20? Because I'm going to make this a lot bigger at the top end so I can have smaller numbers down the bottom end because the average has to work out. So instead of having 5 numbers, I've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers, sorry. Okay. So I've got my 7 numbers there. So 7 times 8 equals 56. So my new total has to be 56. So this time I'm going to take away the newly added 20 away from 56. I'm going to take away the 2 9s that I had originally and the 7, which now means these 3 numbers that I've got have to add up to a total of 11. And how much easier is that going to be? Okay, now so for example, I might start with a 6 here, I might start with a 4 and a 1, and that nicely makes 11. Remember, I don't want to have more than 2 of the same number because then the mode will change. And I'm going to try all these up. I've got 1 plus 4 plus 6 plus 7 plus 9 plus 9 plus 20. And of course, I've got 7 numbers, so I'm going to divide that by 7. Okay, we have a mean of 8. That works out. I've also got a mode of 9, and that works out. And if I cross my numbers out, left and right, look at that, I have a median of 7. Now again, gentlemen, there are lots of ways that you can do this question. This is just simply one way. I started with a median. I threw a couple of 9s in for my mode, and then I tried to work out from there. A bit of trial and error, and there are some other ways of doing it. That's just my way. The mean of a set of numbers is 5. Okay, when 19 is added to this set of numbers, the new mean is now 7. How many data were there in the original set of numbers? Okay, so we know that the original set had a mean of 5, right? And we now know when we add in 19 to that set of numbers, whatever that might be, okay, the new mean is now 7. Now, so this means, for example, if I want to look at it this way, of an average of 7, you know, when I'm looking at these numbers here, that's kind of like what I'm looking at. It's going to be a whole pile of averages of 7. So, for example, if it was just one number in the set of numbers, I'd have a total of 7. If it was 2 numbers in the set of numbers, I'd have a total of 14, or 21, or 28, or 35, or 42, or 49. Now, you might be thinking, where am I going with this? Well, if I've added 19 to a set of numbers with average of 5, well, I want to have a number. So let's say, for example, I have one number of 5. When I add 19 to it, I want to make one of these numbers. Okay, 5 plus 19 equals 24. That's not going to be very nice. If I say I've got 2 numbers with an average of 5, like that, and I add 19 to it, I now have 29. I want to make one of these numbers here. I don't make that. If I look at 3 numbers of 5 with an average, so 15 divided by 3 is 5, I add a 19. I now have 15 plus 19, which is going to be a total of 34. That doesn't work out. Now you can keep on doing this, or you can work opposite. You can take away numbers. Okay, like for example, I can take away the 19 to see what happens. Now, what's 49 take away 19? Well, you might say it's 30. And 30 is a multiple of 5, which means if I did 6 lots of 5 as a mean, I get 30. If I add on 19 to it, I get the 49, which when I divide it by 7 numbers, because 6 plus 1 is 7 numbers, we get an average of, or a mean of 7. Gentlemen, that's a very hard question. Again, lots of ways you could do that. Okay, it's problem solving, which means you have to use your brain to try and solve these problems. Right hand side, apologies. The next one, I like this one because it's a much quicker way of doing it. Okay, after 3 assessments, I have a mean of 78. I like these questions because if we had 3 assessments and there was a mean of 78, we know that the total score was simply 3 lots of 78, which is 234. It says that I'm going to have a 4th assessment task, but I want to now raise a mean of 85, which means after 4 assessment tasks, we want to have a mean of 85. So 4 times 85 equals 340. So you want to figure out what is the difference that I have to achieve. And that's a much easier question. Because now I simply say 340, take away 234, and whack it into our brain or our calculator, and we get a score of 106. Now, I never told you what the maximum score was. You could have a question that says it's out of 100, therefore, guess what? It's not possible. But for me, now, in order to get the average of 85, I do need to add in a score of 106. Again, I can double check that by doing 234 plus 106, and of course I can divide it by the 4 assessments. I now have 85. So the score that I want to add in is 106. That last question is a really common one. It's a much nicer question because it's a much quicker way of doing things. And I'm sure there were quicker ones for the other ways, but you know what? That's just how I did it. Hopefully this made a bit of sense to you. I'll talk to you in class on Wednesday, or no, not Wednesday, on Thursday. Have a good day.